Subscribe because it is free.
The Galactic Medical Summit was supposed to be a display of order, efficiency, and cutting-edge biotechnology. 38 species arrived with sterilized domes, chrome-plated surgical bots, and regulations thicker than Valturian concrete. Every tent buzzed with low-frequency healing auras and whisper protocols until the humans showed up. They were late. Of course they were late. A distant rumble across the barren fields of Virex. 9 turned heads. Not sleek transports or hovercraft. No. They came in beat-up armored trucks that looked like they'd survived 3 wars and a barbecue. Dust in their wake, music blaring. Something loud and ancient called Highway to Hell. Every species stopped what they were doing. Out jumped the human medics. Not in medical robes or sterile whites, but in mismatched fatigues, jackets with patches, sunglasses indoors. One of them had a bandana that read, "Pain is weakness leaving the body." They unloaded crates marked medical supplies, probably, and handle with regret. An alien from the Ilari species, whose idea of chaos was a color-coded clipboard being out of order, visibly shuddered. Their tent, or rather bunker, was an old field hospital made from retrofitted military canvas. With dents from previous conflicts and scorch marks no one cared to clean. Outside a sign, Tent 17, try not to die. Underneath it, another in smaller writing, no refunds. A curious Zalari medic wandered over. Zalari, thin-fingered and hypersensitive to environmental toxins, approached with caution. From outside, the human tent hummed with life. Clattering metal, bursts of laughter, a scream that was either agony or someone losing a bet. The flap opened. The Zalari took one step inside, locked eyes with a medic using duct tape to close a thigh wound, and collapsed on the spot. The human who saw it shrugged, nudged the alien's unconscious body aside with a boot, and said, "Someone get the glitter box. We got another one down." The aliens were baffled. Their medics used nano-stabilizers and sterile force fields. The humans used garden shears, alcohol swabs, and a tool they called the gripper. What was it for? No one knew. The aliens began whispering. Were humans mocking the summit? Was this some kind of psychological warfare? A Pluvian doctor approached a human and politely asked if their sterilization procedures met the council's code B9. The human replied, "Sterilize? We boil the instruments and curse at them. Usually does the trick." Even before stepping inside, more aliens started experiencing symptoms. Faint nausea, lightheadedness. One sworn technician began hyperventilating after spotting a biohazard bag being used as a pillow. From afar, council observers grew concerned. The human structure didn't emit healing frequencies, nor was it sealed against the planet's acidic winds. Yet injured soldiers flocked to it, not just humans, even aliens, tentatively at first, then in growing numbers. Something wasn't adding up. A report filed by a Yantari compliance officer simply read, "Enter human tent 17. Observed bodily fluids, improvised tools, foul odors, laughter, and was that someone eating? Will file full report after therapy." Back at base, another Zalari medic sat shaking, sipping electrolytes, muttering, "They call it medicine. They call it medicine." Inside tent 17, the air was thick with antiseptic, adrenaline, and the unmistakable smell of instant coffee and something vaguely meaty. A half-empty 4-bag hung from a bent coat hanger. A patient was on a makeshift stretcher. Well, 2 ammo crates and a thermal blanket, grinning as a human medic stitched a wound with what looked suspiciously like fishing line. No gloves, just confidence. The Andronian medic, used to clean room surgery pods and machine-assisted procedures, stood frozen. A human nurse, chewing gum and scribbling notes on her forearm, gave him a once-over and said, "You look like you're about to pass out. Don't worry, we got a puke bucket. Somewhere." He didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the defibrillator. It wasn't standard issue. It was clearly built from a car battery, jumper cables, and part of a toaster. A sign next to it said, "Mildly tested." As if on cue, it crackled loudly, causing the Andronian to flinch. A nearby patient clapped and shouted, "Still kicks like a mule." In the next bed, a soldier from the insectoid Vern race was being patched up. The medic working on him was wearing a helmet with a cracked visor and a shirt that read surgeonish. He poured a clear liquid into the wound. The Andronian whispered, horrified, "Is that alcohol?" The human turned around. "Yep, cleans the wound. Also makes a great drink once we're off shift." The translator drone hovering overhead twitched as it tried to interpret what "wrap it up with duck magic" meant. It blinked, glitched, and rebooted in safe mode. No alien language accounted for the words cowboy suture or miracle spit. Another alien medic walked in and stopped cold. In the corner, someone was doing CPR while shouting lyrics from a Terran rock song. "Don't stop. Believe in compression. Hold on to that FEN. More compression." It worked. The patient groaned, rolled over, and muttered, "Tell my mom I want chili." The medic gave a thumbs up. Another life saved. The aliens outside didn't understand. The human tent looked like controlled chaos, emphasis on chaos. But patients kept coming out alive, with smiles. One even asked to be reassigned there. They yell at you, but like in a loving way. Someone tripped over a labeled crate. Emergency snacks / last resort tourniquets. Another crate read morphine or sugar, spin to win. The Andronian finally gathered the courage to ask, "Where are your sterilization robots?" The nurse blinked. "We don't have those. We got Carl. He's mostly clean." She gestured to a man in the back, cleaning a scalpel with a lighter and humming. To the aliens, it looked like a war zone pretending to be a hospital. But it worked. It shouldn't, but it did. Every medical instinct told them this was madness, but every result said otherwise. Just as the Andronian turned to leave, he caught sight of a whiteboard near the entrance. Scrawled on it in red marker, objectives: 1, keep him breathing; 2, don't die; 3, laugh at least once. He paused, then fainted. A Trovakian soldier, battle-scarred and barely clinging to life, remembered the moment everything went dark. He'd lost too much blood on the field. His species required a pressurized healing chamber and 3 specific pheromones to survive critical injury. None of that was available. But he woke up inside 1017, still alive, with a human sitting beside him, holding his hand and humming off-key. He was confused. There were flashing lights, yelling, and a smell that made his antenna twitch. A medic leaned over him and said, "You're not dead, buddy. Welcome back. You owe us a story and maybe a dance." He didn't know how they kept him alive. He still doesn't. Later, he learned they use a plastic bag, an aquarium pump, and something called military-grade beef jerky to stabilize him. It made no sense, but it worked. One Draylon field officer, whose bones shattered like glass under pressure, recalled waking up as a human medic explained mid-sandwich how they'd reinforce his chest cavity using reinforced gauze duct tape and part of a dismantled combat drone. "You're lucky," the medic grinned. "We almost had to use a stapler. Again," that officer later wrote in his report. "They saved my life using literal battlefield debris. I think they invented a new type of medicine on the spot, and then offered me chili." It wasn't just improvisation. It was the way the humans treated their patients. They joked. They told stories. One nurse gave out socks because warm feet make you heal faster. Another taught a Pluvian soldier how to play cards one-handed while his other arm regrew. These weren't standard procedures, but they mattered. A Yalker trooper who had seen 50 battles said, "The humans scare me, not because they're violent, because they care, even when it hurts them." One medic carried me for 2 miles on his back through acid rain, then treated me with one good arm because his other was broken. Another alien asked a human why they risked so much. The answer? Because someone's gotta. And we're good at fixing broken stuff. Even people. It wasn't all heartwarming. Their humor was dark, sometimes horrifying. One sign over the operating station read, "We lose fewer than we drop." But beneath the sarcasm was steel, unshakable determination. They weren't doing it for praise. They just did it. And somehow that laughter, rough, crude, chaotic, helped. Patients healed faster. They felt human warmth through rubber gloves and gravel-throated jokes. One Vern soldier later said, "I didn't want to live. Then a human told me I looked too ugly to die. I laughed, and I lived." Tent 17 became a legend, not because it was clean or calm, but because inside its madness was meaning. No protocol, no handbook, just guts, grit, and kindness that didn't care where you were from. If you crawled and breathing, they'd keep you that way, and maybe tell a terrible joke while doing it. Word of Tent 17 spread far beyond the summit. At first, the Galactic Council sent compliance officers to investigate. They never made it past the threshold. One vomited, one cried, one simply stared blankly into distance and muttered, "They stitched a kidney with fishing line and it worked." Official inspections were quietly canceled. What came instead were patients. Lots of them. Even species who once mocked humans now diverted casualties to Tent 17. Officers who'd sworn they'd never trust a species that called surgery meat puzzle time suddenly entrusted them with their lives. The Pluvians, once hypercritical, donated an entire crate of their medical salves. "We don't know what they'll do with it," their ambassador said, "but somehow they'll make it work." Soon, a Cathari delegation arrived, not for medical help, but to learn. They watched as a human calmly used a hairdryer and chewing gum to reseal a cracked bone casing. "Is this sanctioned by your species?" one asked. The medic grinned. "Nah, but the patient's alive and still complaining, so that's a win." More aliens began to observe. They saw how humans worked with whatever they had. When blood supplies ran low, they adapted with emergency transfusion packs that looked like juice pouches but saved lives. They didn't panic when the gear broke. They improvised, joked, and moved on. Resilience served with sarcasm. What no one expected was the ripple effect. Other tents started loosening up. A Zalari unit tried playing music. Badly, but it was a start. The Andronians allowed minor deviations from protocol. One sworn medic admitted, "We tried cracking a joke during surgery today. It felt strangely therapeutic." Back in Tent 17, the whiteboard had been updated. Day without feigning aliens, 0. Lives saved, too many to count. Morale level, questionably high. And then came the request from the Galactic Medical Board, a formal proposal for a human emergency response curriculum. No one thought it would pass. It passed unanimously, because behind the grime and madness, humans had shown something none of the others had mastered. Asterisk grace under fire, asterisk a refusal to quit, and an ability to laugh through the pain. When the summit ended, most species returned to their pristine facilities, advanced bots, and controlled labs. But they took a little of Tent 17 with them, a reminder that medicine wasn't just technology and protocol. It was empathy. It was grit. And sometimes, yes, duct tape. The tent was packed up with zero ceremony. Just a nod, a few smirks, and a trail of sarcastic goodbye notes like, "Don't die without us," and "Call us when your machines crash." One alien asked a human, "Do you always work like this?" The human shrugged. "Only when someone needs saving." And somewhere deep in council records, in a sealed but heavily accessed file, one line is underlined 3 times. In crisis zones, deploy humans first. Bring backup and a sense of humor. Asterisk, asterisk.